Hello, Lindsay. How are you today?
Hey there, Aubrey. How are you doing?
Excellent. Do you like to exaggerate?
Oh, I do. I think I wouldn't be labeled as someone that always exaggerates, but I think the fact that I'm American and I speak American English means I do
We
do
love
exaggerate.
to exaggerate.
Yeah.
Well, we just to add interest, right?
Yes.
It's not like we're trying to lie. We're just trying to make a story more interesting,
Yes.
more engaging for whoever's listening. We
Yep.
love to add it to
And if we're
exaggerate.
verbal people, if we like to speak, then we probably do exaggerate a little bit. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
We're not lying here. It's just trying to add color to your stories, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
And exaggerating and going to extremes like this can increase your IELTS scores. What does that mean,
Yeah.
going to extremes, Lindsay?
Going to extremes means taking what you're trying to say and then kind of talking in exaggerated or extreme, the most extreme way about it. And we're going to give a lot of
Exactly.
examples here, so we'll know exactly what we're saying here.
We're going to give you 3 ways to go to extremes, to
Yeah.
exaggerate, with examples for each. But this can raise 3 of your scores on the IELTS speaking exam. Your fluency and coherence score, because you'll have more to say, more details. Your vocabulary score, with that higher scoring, more interesting vocabulary about it. And also your pronunciation score, because this pushes you to add interesting intonation when you're exaggerating.
3 of your scores. That seems like a very 80-20 thing to do then in that case, Aubrey. And I have a feeling a lot of traditional IELTS textbooks do not recommend this. You know, they just probably don't teach it because maybe it's a lesser known or under examined strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. But luckily here on the IELTS Energy podcast, we're giving you these great tips because, kill 3 birds with 1 stone, all 3 of these
Might
scores.
as well. Yeah. I don't like to kill birds, but yeah. Guys, don't forget to hit the follow button right there on IELTS Energy. If you want all IELTS Energy to drop into your listening library 2 days a week, don't miss it. All right.
Yeah. All right. Let's dive in with the first way you can exaggerate, and that is with the vocabulary you use.
Yes.
So, for example, if you're asked on part 1 about hobbies or exercise, and you end up talking about an outdoor space or describing a beautiful place, for example, you want to use adjectives that basically mean beautiful or awesome to describe the view,
Yes.
but you need to exaggerate, right?
Yes.
More than beautiful, bigger, less common adjectives.
Exactly. And that's what we mean by going to extremes, right? So what are some of those adjectives that we can use, Aubrey?
Yeah. So awe-inspiring, breathtaking, majestic, stunning. These are all bigger, like more exaggerated than just pretty or beautiful, right?
Yes, we want to keep the examiner awake and alive and listening to us. That would be another byproduct of using this strategy that will do that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, Lindsay, can you give us a sample, just a few sentences?
Yes.
If you were asked on part 2 to describe a beautiful place you visited, or this could come up on part 1 if you're asked about a hobby or a way you like to exercise. What could you say using a couple of these adjectives?
Yeah, I could say back in 2019, I visited Crater Lake, which is I believe it's in Western Oregon or Eastern Oregon, and it was stunning. I'm telling you, we got up at sunrise and the lake was just majestic. The way the sun came over the lake, it was breathtaking. I couldn't believe it. And I just can't describe how awe-inspiring it was.
Ooh, amazing. You're able to use all of them. And if you didn't notice her intonation, rewind the episode and listen, because it's strange to use a monotone to say it was stunning.
Right.
She said it was stunning.
Yeah.
You need that variation of tone. These words are going to push you to do that because it just makes sense to punch those harder to emphasize how beautiful it was.
Yeah, so that's the first strategy for today is exaggerate with vocabulary, but there are other ways to do it too, Aubrey. So what would be the second way to do it?
Yeah. Second is to exaggerate with superlatives,
Okay.
right? So you can add the word most to interesting adjectives. When you go to describe a hike, you could call it the most awe-inspiring hike I've ever been on, for example.
Yeah.
The most breathtaking lake I've ever seen. This
Yeah.
is how we really go to extremes.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because we don't say the most awe-inspiring hike of all the hikes I've been on. Just the most awe-inspiring hike alone tone would be okay too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of fun. And then words
Yeah.
that end in EST, things like the sweetest, the loveliest, the hottest, right?
Yeah. And so this is interesting. There are grammar rules in English of when are you adding most and when do you add EST to the end of adjectives. In general, shorter adjectives, we add EST, one syllable. And then if it's two syllables or more, longer adjectives, then we'll usually say most followed by the adjectives.
Right.
But you also want to use these phrases like we were there. It's like by far and ever to really emphasize, to go to extremes. Yes, you're exaggerating, absolutely, but it's giving you better, more interesting vocabulary and intonation.
All right, let's give our listeners a good example here, Aubrey. So, Aubrey, I'm going to ask you to do maybe a part 1 answer. All
right.
So, what if I asked you as the examiner, what is a recent film you enjoyed?
Okay. I recently saw Get Out, and it is by far the most suspenseful film ever released. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time.
I love it.
So you see this chunk. This is so great to say by far the most, and then whatever, stunning, beautiful, suspenseful, thrilling, any adjective you can plug in. This is sort of a template to exaggerate and then plug in the adjective that is appropriate.
We love templates. We love them. So you're improving your pronunciation score because you're using variation in your voice here throughout the sentence, your fluency score and your vocabulary score.
Yeah,
really
you want to punch that by far the most suspenseful. And then look at the end of this sentence. I said ever released. We talk about films being released, but you could say ever made, I've ever seen. So there's some flexibility about the way you end that.
And I guess also you could also just say the most suspenseful film ever.
Ever.
Period.
Oh, yeah. The most suspenseful film ever.
Yeah.
That's great too.
You could do that too. In part 1, you could do that because it's a little more casual,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Number 3, is there a third strategy to exaggerate? What's the third way we can do it?
This is to exaggerate with absolutes.
Okay.
So these are very strong descriptions that are definitely on the extreme end of the vocabulary scale. So what are some examples of words that are giving us an absolute?
Yeah, indispensable, indescribable, unforgettable. And we did a great episode on All Ears English recently about getting the right prefix for words like this. Right?
Yeah, because this is easy to mess up, right? Whether it's un or in or ear.
Yeah, it is.
So definitely check that out. There was a 3-episode series that will help you avoid some of those mistakes.
Yep. And again, guys, if you're not subscribed to All Ears English or not following it, make sure you open your search bar right now, type in All Ears English, just hit that follow button. Then you can start scrolling down. And we do have one other recommendation for you in just a minute here. All right, Aubrey, where do we go from here?
Yeah, if you'd like to ask me a question, I could share maybe a part 1 answer that uses some of these absolutes. They're very flexible. Pretty much any question you get on IELTS speaking, you could figure out a way to use one of these absolutes.
All right. So part 1 question, Aubrey, what is your earliest memory?
Oh, I don't remember a lot before like age 13, but I do remember at about that age being in the woods looking for my lost glasses. And I had terrible vision, so I couldn't see well. I'm like looking for them in the woods, and then I let my parents know they were missing. So it was probably some drama. I was like freaking out. But that is an unforgettable memory that is kind of indescribable. I don't know that people really understand the panic I was feeling.
Oh, interesting. So you use 2 of these words here. Unforgettable memory that is kind of indescribable, right? Because people don't understand the panic. I like that. Really good intonation.
Yeah, and you think about any part 1 or part 2, especially questions that you could get if you share this, exaggerate, and share that the memory was unforgettable, or the experience at this restaurant, or the time spent with a friend was indescribable or unforgettable, and then be sure to vary your intonation. Punch that word harder so that you're not using a monotone.
Yes, I love it. Yep, intonation is huge, because if you do just use these words and don't accommodate the intonation, I mean, I guess you'll get a vocabulary score increase, but pronunciation, you'll miss the opportunity. right?
Absolutely. If you're using a monotone, you can't score higher than a 5 for your pronunciation score. You've got to vary your intonation, punch adjectives and adverbs and interesting vocabulary harder, and slow down to give yourself the space to do that.
Oh my gosh, 5 would really bring down a score, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, yes.
And there's another episode over on All Ears English we want to recommend that you guys check out, because we talked on that episode about exaggeration and how in American English, we do exaggerate a lot. Right?
Yeah. And we shared the phrase crazy about. So it was 2527 called You'll Be Crazy About This Vocabulary. And then some other great expressions we use with the word crazy to exaggerate. So if you're not following All Ears English, you missed out on some amazing vocabulary. Like Lindsay said, open the search bar, hit follow on the All Ears English podcast. Yeah. So much vocabulary there that's great for the IELTS exam.
Yeah. And also just great, English for daily life. Once we eventually achieve our goal, which is to immigrate abroad, right? We need language skills when we're living abroad. So there you go.
Life isn't over after IELTS. It's just the beginning. You'll need to continue expanding your vocabulary.
Exactly. What's our final takeaway for today?
Yeah, like we said, you can boost 3 speaking scores: fluency and coherence, vocabulary, and pronunciation by exaggerating. So use extremes, use absolutes with this interesting intonation to boost all 3 of those scores.
Yes, love it. And guys, make sure you get in your practice. This is not just going to come up on test day all of a sudden. If you know you have to do it intellectually, but you haven't practiced doing it, it's not just going to be a magical power that you have, right?
Exactly. Look up some speaking questions and practice using these strategies so that you're ready on test day and it comes naturally.
Great stuff. All right, Aubrey, you have a good rest of your day. I'll see you back on IELTS Energy very soon. All right.
You too. Awesome. Thanks, Lindsay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.